Greetings, YouTube. I recently had the chance to watch the film Premonition with Sandra Bullock. Mostly I purchased the disc because it has a commentary track with Sandra Bullock, and I've never listened to a commentary track with that particular person. But I wanted to watch the film, without the commentary track, so I kind of knew what was going on, and then at some later date I'll listen to it again. I'll watch it again with the commentary track. That's what I usually do. And for those that don't know, Premonition is a kind of a supernatural thriller kind of horror thing, not all that horror, about a woman who is viewing the world through a different lens. Now, there's all kinds of spoilers in this, so if you haven't seen Premonition, stop now, go watch it, or never watch it, what have you, but you have been warned. So in essence, our main character, played by Sandra Bullock, is viewing the world in a non-linear manner. So their timeline is going in a linear manner, but she is going dook, 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 in a repetitious process. So she's jumping forward and back, until she gets to the back, originally back to the set point, and then she does it some more. And apparently, if you look at her nightwear, that will tell you what day it is. I didn't actually pick that up. I read that in the IMDb trivia section. I love the IMDb trivia section. And I don't know if I don't know anybody in real life that changes their nightwear every single day, but currently Sandra Bullock's character does. The film also had a number of things in it which pissed me off. Like, for example, in the opening segment of the film, her husband buys a house without telling her and gives her as a gift. Buying a house is one of the most important decisions anyone can make, and he didn't include her at all. That's a warning sign. Big red flag. This is not a healthy relationship. And how the hell did he buy this place? Because even if the film was set in 2007, before the crash, the real estate crash, the bubble burst, that house had to have been worth $700,000, $800,000. I mean, it's a beautiful house in a beautiful neighborhood on a big hunk of property. Crap me, what the hell is he doing for a living? It involved going to an office, we know that much. He commutes a lot, that kind of thing. So she wakes up, finds out her husband's dead, killed in a car accident. Starts to process. Things aren't going well. Zink! Next day she wakes up, he's alive. Whoop! Into the future the next day. And eventually she realizes there's a pattern to it. And she's freaking out. And she convinces her husband, he tries to tell her, don't go on this trip, because she doesn't actually know for sure what caused exactly his death. What series of events led to it. She's trying to prevent it initially. And as part of that, he kind of freaks out a little bit himself and goes to stop his insurance agent and triples the coverage he has on himself. Perfectly standard to do. He's about to go on a trip. Lots of people get a little freaky and increase that in itself is not a red flag to the insurance guy. It's like, it happens. People do this. In a world, in a post 9/11 world, sometimes people get freaked out about, crashing in planes and crap or dying on a trip. So she's resisting this, convinced that at one point their husband's not dead, and insists they open the coffin and they drop it and his head rolls out. That was a little grotesque. You don't actually see much, just boom, boom, boom. And at one point she sees her daughter, and her daughter's face is all cut up. He says, honey, what happened to you? And her other daughter acts kind of like, why don't you know this? And then eventually she figures out that her daughter ran through a window. A glass door, ran through it, and her husband kind of blames her for it because he's alive at this point in the memory, in the process, because she was supposed to put stickers on the window or something so the kid wouldn't run into it. That's a bit of a stretch. You're blaming your wife for not putting stickers on a window so their daughter wouldn't run through it. Yeah, stickers are smart, maybe, but not a healthy relationship. And over the course of this, she realizes he was either having an affair or about to have an affair, so things aren't good. But of course, as this goes on, she gets better and better at processing his death. So she's not grieving as much. She's just kind of doing it because she knows it's going to happen. She knows she can't stop it. She's tried. She can't. And eventually she kind of reconciles with him, and they have this romantic night together. She's basically saying goodbye to him at this point. She knows that eventually this repetition will stop, and he's going to be dead. And of course, at the end of the film, they kind of reconcile over the phone, and she is present. She watches the accident happen. He's on the phone with her. She convinces him to stop. His car stalls out some ways, and I don't know why. Like, he drops the phone, picks it up, the car won't start, and then a truck comes up behind him that's full of fuel, of course, hits him, and they both die. But she witnesses this. Now, a couple of things that were a problem with this, the whole process. At one point, people accused her of hurting her daughter, of her being the person that cut up her daughter's face, even though the girl did not claim that anyone had hurt her face other than, my mom did not do this, but she did not, people are like, well, how'd you get hurt? Now, that's what didn't make any sense. Now, Sandra Bullock is moving in a non-linear fashion through time, but if these people didn't know that their granddaughter or cousin or nephew or niece or whatever it was, or family friend, had run through that window, that means either the daughter is moving non-linearly through the time, or everyone is moving non-linearly through time. The only person that should have been moving non-linearly that's a weird word, is Sandra Bullock's character. There should never have been a point where anyone thought that she hurt her daughter, because her daughter is part of the linear time stream. So it made no sense that anyone thought that Sandra Bullock hurt her kid. None whatsoever. And they just snatched her up and threw her into an insane asylum at one point. And of course, the next morning she wakes up and she's back in the cycle. And she figures out how to avoid that. Her daughter does still get hurt, but her daughter eventually heals, apparently. And at the end of the film, she's pregnant with a new child, because that's what the little romantic evening they had, yada, yada, yada. But the scene where she watches her husband die, I had a couple of problems with it. Now, she's on the cell phone with her husband before the accident happens, during the accident happening. Don't drive and talk on a cell phone. That's dumb. Okay? She, her husband, and the truck were the only cars on the road. How, I don't know, but there was no other traffic. You know that practically there was no other traffic, because they were about to do a stunt. But if you looked at it realistically, if it had been the real world, there was no traffic anywhere. So the truck driver had lots of space. Now, they did a forced perspective, so the camera was low and in front of the car, so the truck, you weren't supposed to be able to tell how far away the truck was. But if you know anything about perspective, even forced perspective, that truck was far enough away. If that driver had been competent, he could either stopped his rig or pulled into the oncoming lane where there was no traffic at all, or off the road. But instead, he jackknifes it, creams the car, and then blows himself and the other guy up, who was already probably dead, having been decapitated by having a tanker slice the top of his car off. And Sandra Bullock watches this, then she leaves. And then she has to pretend like she didn't know about it. That must have been fun. But no one checked the records. The cell phone records. Now, if they checked the records and saw that he was talking to his wife when the accident happened, not 100% weird. People talk on the phone all the time. Don't talk on the phone while driving. And talking to your wife on the phone is perfectly normal. But did they check her phone? Because if they would have seen that he and she were on the same cell network. They were on the same tower. And what the hell was she doing at the site of the accident? Watching it. No one ever seems to ask that. So she gets this huge payout, sells her very, very expensive house, and moves her 2 daughters and her new future baby to some lakeside place where they can then have a happy, bucolic life, because she's now out of that time loop jumpy thing that she was caught in. It wasn't a very good movie at all. I'll be intrigued to see what she has to say when I get to listen to the commentary track. Maybe it's not any good. I guess I'll find out. But it was a mess. And apparently they did a lot of reshooting, and everybody involved was kind of like, it was not a well done process. It was not a good production as far as the sense that it made. And as one reviewer said, a film that the more you think about it, the less sense it makes, and I have to agree. It was a mess. Time travel always is, and they didn't handle it well. So I rambled on long enough about this movie. I don't recommend it. I don't know what the commentary track is, but I've been having a hard time believing the commentary track is going to redeem this film in any way, shape, or form. But I still would like to listen to it someday, just because I've never gotten to listen to Miss Bollock do the commentary track, and I enjoy listening to those. So if you've seen Premonition, I want to know what you thought. Do you think it's as much of a mess as I do? And were you deeply confused by why the daughter seemed to be moving through time in some way because the people didn't know that she ran through a window, or rather ran through a door? And thought it made no sense. None. It was a mess. Alrighty. So that was the movie Premonition. I didn't like it. Tell me what you thought.